Hi gang, Scott here. In this video, we are going through the export panel in Photo Raw 2022. Lots of new options, a big redesign on the export experience in Photo Raw. We'll go through all the options, all the panels, all the controls in this video. If you're thinking about adding Photo Raw 2022 to your toolkit, haven't decided if you want to upgrade or not, I've got an offer code for you that will save you 20%. It's in the corner there. Also, links are down below, and that gives me a little bit of support. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Matter of fact, it saves you money, and you can get this new software with these new export options. Now, I will say this video is going to run long. There's a lot of options in export. I will put chapter markers in this video. I do this on a lot of my videos, actually. So you can bookmark this, come back in the future if you need to get a refresher on, how do I work with the resize area, or, what's the parameters for renaming things. There'll be jump points that you can just get the information you need in the future. With that, let's dive into the export panel. To open the export panel, click the export button lower right corner. You can also do file export. And I'm going to collapse all these sections here so you can see there's all these different sections: naming, destination, file type, resize, sharpening, metadata, watermark. We're going to go through every one of them in this video. This is going to be a long video, but again, chapter markers. You'll be able to jump to where you need to. Quick on the layout here. On the left-hand side are various presets. So as I select a preset, different things are being populated in this area. You see I have some resizing options changed there, and so that part is changed. Destination has some particular settings that have been done, just part of that preset. You can select more than one preset, so you can export to multiple sizes. I did not change that other than fiddling around with the interface. So you can set multiple presets and have them all exported. You'd probably want to make sure your export presets are using either a unique naming convention or you're sending things to subfolders. We'll get there. We'll see how that works as we get into the different areas here. Let me turn off all of the presets, and let's start with the naming section. So just showing naming. Now you'll notice presets right away. So one of the things is with Power comes like nested things. We have presets just for names of your exported photos. And this is really whatever you want it to be. It can be freeform text, right? You can just type in anything you want and you get an example of what the ultimate file name will be. Or you can use tokens, like I have file name, I have title. These are all available here. Add token. You have all sorts of metadata from your photo that is available, into the camera, ratings. All this data can be built into a file name for your export. I like to use the file name and the title. That's just my convention. There are a ton of things, and then you can also tack on sequence numbers if you needed to keep things unique. For me, I already have a sequence number built into my file name. You have all of this flexibility in naming things. And once you come up with a naming convention, you'll see I have a preset here, file name and title. Let's go ahead and add another one. I tend to use hyphens to separate things. Let's just say I also wanted to add in, I'm not sure, the location, like the metadata. Let's say, where was this photo captured, right? So we could say the country, okay? And then we can save this as a new preset right down here at the bottom. Save new preset. This is just a preset for the file name, and so I would call it like file name plus title plus country. And now that becomes an option that I can choose from my pick list. I'll stick with file name plus title, and that is naming. So recapping that, you have freeform names you can use. You can incorporate different tokens from the metadata of your photo itself. The name, of course, but also any of the information you've added to the photo. You can extract years, you can extract location, tons of stuff in that add token area. So that's how you build up a file naming convention for your exports, and you can save that as a named preset. Continuing on to destination. When you export something, it has to go somewhere, and it has to go somewhere. Notice there is not a blue button next to destination. We cannot disable this section. Other things, we could choose not to rename a file, but we must provide a destination. And there are a variety of options here, quite a number actually. Folder, you can have it go back to the original folder. You can send it somewhere else, a folder that you specify as part of the export. I like to work with ask when exporting, because most often I'm exporting photos for a particular reason. Either they're going along with a video that I'm posting on YouTube, or they're going to go to a prospective client, or some other reason. And so I'll have the destination ask me, where do you want to put these particular exported photos? You can choose to put them in a subfolder if you want to. And if there are existing photos that are already there, you can either skip those exports or replace them, or just keep both and get some kind of unique name. Usually leave that as keep both, mainly for paranoia. Now with the subfolders, you also have the option of generating subfolders. So you have more presets for generating subfolders. How do you want to generate subfolders? You have all those tokens again, so you can get very detailed on how will these subfolders get broken up. And just as an example, maybe we'll just use year for an example, where the year that the photo was captured, that's the year from the photo, not current year, from the photo you're exporting. Where is that going to go? I'll create a subfolder of years. So if I'm exporting a whole lot of things, like my favorite photos ever over the last 10 years, I can separate them out with those individual years. And of course, you can save presets for these generating subfolder items. So lots of flexibility here. I tend to keep my photos in my asset manager and only export when I need to, not something I use often. What I will use is after the export's done, well, do you want to do something? Do you want to show those folders and see where those exports have gone? Because if you're going to take the next step is now I've exported the photos, I want to go do something with them. Maybe you're working them into a book. Maybe you're just getting them up on your website. Pop that open, show it in the Finder or Explorer. You can create an archive. You can open the exported files in another application. One of the applications I use often is JPEG Mini Pro. I have a separate video that shows the workflow of having ON1 export a photo and then have it compressed and made smaller with JPEG Mini Pro. Very powerful. You can run your own custom script. So that's the destination area. Key points is you need to specify a folder. You got to tell the export where it's going to go. And then you have some options for what you want to do after the export has completed. The next area, file type. This is our specifying our final output. What kind of file do you want to create? Do you want to export the original? It's the raw. Do you want to have the metadata in there? Do you want the sidecar to go with it? You have lots of options for that. JPEG is common. TIFF is common. You can export DNG, original, as converted to DNG raw if you so desire. Let's take a look at JPEG. That's one of the more common ones. We have JPEG, you specifying a profile, so you have your color profiles. If you're exporting for the web, sRGB makes sense. If you're exporting for some other purposes, like to a print lab, maybe they have a different requirement for the color profile they want. And you also have your quality slider. So, for online use, 80 or 90 might be okay. The higher you push this up, notice the estimated file size that's being given there starts to go up as well. Now this is the photo I'm working with is a 40-ish megapixel photo. So yeah, it's going to be kind of big if I export a very high quality JPEG without changing any other parameters such as its size. But for the file type, we have lots of controls there. One other one I'll show you is TIFF. We have the same types of things here with the color profile. You can preserve transparency if you have transparency into your tip, and you have control over the types of compression as well as bit depth. So plenty of flexibility in the file type portion of the export. The destination and the file type sections of any export are required. Everything else is optional, but you have to say where do you want that export to go, and what format do you want it in. Those two things are required. Moving on to the Resize section, and I'll leave file type open for a moment. It'll be apparent in a minute. We have lots of different options to resize. Specific dimensions. The long edge should be a certain distance. The short edge should be a certain amount. Specific width and height as far as pixel measurements or pixels per centimeter. You can also do that in inches. So if you want to set a particular size for that long width there, I want this to be, I don't know, an 8-inch wide photo. Same thing for height. You can export to a specific megapixel count as well as just a simple percentage. I want to shrink all my photos by 40%. So there's plenty of flexibility here for whatever need you have. For me, most often I'm using dimensions and in particular long edge. That's my particular favorite one, where I'm exporting for primarily social media or a website share and say, you know what, I don't want the long edge of my photo. And in the background you can see this is a landscape oriented photo. Don't export it any bigger than 1500 pixels, and also don't enlarge it. If I happen to have a very small photo, I don't want you to upscale it. If it's already smaller than this, well then just give me what it is and export it out. And notice up in the estimated file size, back up in the file type area, that changes as we change these parameters. If I made this, well, you know what, I want this to be kind of big, 3000 pixels. You're getting an estimate of what that file size is going to be. Now the one option in Resize that isn't there isn't a set this file size and make all of my exports about this size. So that one's not in here, but just about everything else is. So that is the Resize section. Also an optional thing. If you don't want to resize, you can turn it off. Let's move on to sharpening. I'll close these down here. We can sharpen the photo on the output. There are some built-in options here for if you're outputting for a print, if you're outputting for screen. Screen low is fine for me here, but you also have manual controls. You can adjust these sliders, and these work similar to the sharpening sliders that we have in other areas like the print module. There's an old sharpening filter. If you're familiar with how those work and there's a certain type of sharpening that you like for your photos, you can dial that in here and get exactly what you want, so you can override and tweak the algorithm as necessary. Once again, sharpening is also an optional thing. It does not need to be included. Let's move on to metadata, another one that is optional, can or cannot be included, up to you. All your metadata presets are accessible. If you have set up presets in other areas, like in Browse, in the metadata panel, those are accessible here, or you can include all the metadata. Or what I tend to do for an export is I'll include everything except ratings. People don't need to know the ratings and the labels that I use on photos. That's for my bookkeeping, not really important for an exported photo for my use cases. And also GPS, I will often turn that off where I'm not sharing the location that the photo was captured. You have all of these different controls here, down to individual segments of the IPTC areas. So in the metadata pane in Browse, you have a variety of options to set things about the image, set things about you as the photographer. You can include or exclude those things all from the metadata section of the export window. And then once you like things the way they are, we can bake those into a larger scale export preset at the end of this. But there's one more section we still have to go through, the Watermark section. Now this one's a big one. This is actually a very big section. It looks small, but there's a reason I have this window as big as I do. All right, so here is Watermark. Let's start with, let's start with nothing. I'm going to close out all of these things. This is how it would normally look if you've not done any watermarking before. You see your photo and you see Add Watermark. We have options to add a text watermark or a logo watermark, or both. You can have both on your photo, and you have lots of control over what the text is, where does it look, where does it sit, what font, all that stuff. So let's start with text. So I'll hit text. Let me scroll up here a little bit so we can see most of this here. Let's see, your text. It's either going to be something like your name, you know, or your website. For me, I use like my website. And you have also access to all of the tokens, right? So let's say you're using like just your name as the artist and you want to add a year, 2021, that's fine. You could also, if you are a person who exports and does it in the same year or the same month or the same date, you can access the metadata from the photo. This is from the photo. So I'm going to click this here and you'll notice the example is showing me 2017. That was the year I happened to take this particular photo. So know that about the tokens. The tokens are from the metadata in your photo. They're not calendar dates, and that's especially important for trying to build a current year kind of thing here. We don't quite have that option. That's really going to be a new ask to ON1. Please add a current year little button here to add that as a standard for the text. But once we have the text, you can change its font to anything that you want, any font you have on your system. You can change its color if you want to have a background color, you want to have a different foreground color. You have all of these different options. I'll keep it at white. The size, and you see that preview up at the top. It's changing. Let me change the size. I can change the opacity, so I don't want to have it at full strength. I just want a hint there. Hey, this is my photo, and we have the position. Put it in the lower left, the lower right. Inset, how tight on that corner should it be or should it not be? I can have that centered. I could right justify it if I really want to squeeze it over into that corner. All of this control here for just the text, and this is just the text, right? You can also add an image watermark. Back to that add watermark, I can add a logo. Now this gave me a standard copyright logo. Let me collapse this text area so we can watch the logo and see the preview here. So here's logo. There is some built-in ones, copyright symbol made with ON1. You'll notice I have my own logo added here as well. The import button, this will launch you into the ON1 Extras Manager. It has a new watermarks tab. You can import your own watermarks. If you've got a logo with a transparency, you can add those in to a category. They work just like presets, really. I'll add that one in there. I'll make the size a little bigger so we can see. There's my logo. I can change the inset, push that down into the lower left. We change its opacity, you know, and here is where I would probably have my website as opposed to my name here, but you're getting the idea. And you have all the positioning. If I wanted that to be also on the right, but maybe I change the inset a little bit. You can play some games here with lining things up, text and images. There will be limits. You know, you have basically a tic-tac-toe board to work with, but the corners tend to be the spots that we tuck our logos in and our watermarks. You know, don't be this person here that does like one of these you know, big splat of your photo, you know, all over the place, because your photo should still be what's important, right? That's what you want to be seen. A little logo down in the corner, if you're a watermarking kind of person, you know, something that says, yes, this is mine, and here's where you can find more about me. And once you have that kind of stuff set up, you can set presets, right? I have one for my website in the lower left, and you'll see that there. I've got a different one that just puts my logo in the lower right corner, or I've got one that will do both. So tons of flexibility with watermarking and with everything here. Now, once you've dialed in all of those different things, guess what? You're still not done. You still have more options. You can now create an export preset that encompasses all of that stuff. So let's kind of review what I did here. I have a JPEG file. I'm resizing it to 1500. Let's change that to just 2000 so it'll be a little different than something I already have on the left panel. I'm sharpening it. I'm doing metadata. I'm adding a watermark. That's particularly key. I can save my preset and call this, you know, like watermarked JPEG. I'll save that. That's now over in the side here, and I get some basics. I get the information just at a glance. This is a JPEG, it's 90% quality. It will ask me where it's going, a little bit about the size, and my name tells me what else I have going on in this photo. I have a watermark happening. So with that, I can now select that option, and all of these things are pre-populated. Let's turn that one off for a moment. I'll choose a different one. I have this JPEG Mini I mentioned, doesn't have a watermark, but if I go into the destination area, I'm opening with JPEG Mini after my export. To prove the point, go back to watermarked, and I see that's changed, that's disabled. But certainly I have my watermark information in there. That's all still there. And finally, of course, when you're ready to export, you hit the export button. And this particular one, yes, I'll save that. Yes, I want to save that. I had set the destination as ask me where to put it when I'm exporting, and that's exactly what happens. Pops up here, and I can choose any folder on my desktop or on any device that's connected to my computer and go ahead and fire off. Clicking open will basically say, yes, send this out to that area. And so I'll just send it out to my home directory, and the export starts processing and those files appear in that folder. I also told the export to jump me to the folder in the Finder where that export happened, and so that will throw up on the screen here as well. Now, one other thing about the exporting is once you have done this setup and you've got a few presets configured, you can access them directly. File, export with preset, and you can choose these directly, not having to go into the export dialog. So I want that watermarked JPEG. I just hit it right there. I get that pop-up. Where do you want it to go? I'll have it go to the same place, and it will just export it on out straight away. And there's that file freshly exported with the logos and the watermarks, and it's all looking good. The last feature I'll talk about in the export panel is selecting multiple presets. You can choose more than one preset and run the export all at the same time. The example I'll show you here is creating a full-sized image as well as a thumbnail. So we go into the export area. I have a preset for a thumbnail. I'll select that. I also have my preset for a standard sharing on social media. I'll choose that as well. I'll also set background export. Let these run in the background. When you're doing larger jobs, turn on background export so you can do other work while ON1 crunches in the background. Click export. I have multiple presets. All of these presets will be applied to the selected photos. So I have one photo selected, but if I had 10 or 20 or 30, well, each preset is going to be processed. And so if I had 10 photos selected, 2 presets, I'll end up with 20 exports. Click OK. Will ask me where these want to go. I'll just put them on my desktop, say OK. And you'll notice down in the lower right corner, the export's running in the background. And when that finishes, because one of the exports says, show me the files in the Finder once it's done, it'll get put up on the screen for me and I can see my final output. When the export's finished, I've got my 2 photos there. The first one is my 1500 long edge pixel that went through JPEG Mini. You can see that the JPEG Mini saved me some space after exporting from ON1. And I also have a thumbnail. When I hit the thumbnail, you'll notice on the Finder here, this looks a little bit blurry. Well, this is only a 400 pixel wide image, so this is actually quite tiny, perfect for a thumbnail. This is the one we'll have for a more prominent sharing on my website. And for multi-preset exports, either use the subfolders option to create subfolders and route things to certain places, or use a suffix on the naming convention. I tend to use the naming convention. That's just how I work with it, but both options are available. Just want to make sure that you've got your groupings afterward. You know, your thumbnails go in one place and your full size goes in another place, or whatever sets of presets you're using to export things out. If you're doing different file formats, like a JPEG for a quick share, and then like maybe a TIFF for an archival image, then you've got that unique naming built in because of the file extension. And that is everything about export in ON1 Photo RAW 2022. So I know this was a long video, but chapter markers will help you out. They'll get you around to the spots that you need to worry about. Hope you found it interesting, useful, and if you have questions, go ahead and drop them below. I'll do my best to answer. Until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.